Hello, how's it going? You're welcome. Thank you so much for tuning into Born Optimistic. The reason I'm laughing is because I'm sitting opposite someone I've known for a long, long time, but I've only just learned how to pronounce her surname. She is one of the finest singer-songwriters of her generation. I've been a fan since I first heard her music and haven't stopped being a fan since. Thank you so much for joining us, Katell Keineg.
Hello.
I was just like, I expected a round of applause for getting your surname right. Katell, thanks so much for being here. As is now traditional, I must start by asking you, pessimist or optimist, where do you sit on the spectrum?
I've been forewarned of the question, so I've thought about it. I think we're social apes. You know, we've got the same brains that hunter-gatherers had 10,000 years ago, and if we didn't have a certain amount of optimism, we wouldn't survive. Like, we wouldn't, if you don't have a certain amount of optimism getting out of bed, you would, A, you would be depressed, and B, we need to be optimistic in order to survive, I think.
I'm in shock, because yesterday you told me you were a pessimist. What has changed overnight?
I want to look good on the radio. Whatever this is.
It's such a loaded question, optimist or pessimist, because is it that people don't want to be seen as pessimistic? Do you think it's socially unacceptable to be seen as pessimistic?
There's a certain amount of it is cultural. I mean, I'm half Breton, and the French are famous for being it's all shit. Can I swear?
You can swear.
It's all good. So I'm definitely not Pollyanna. I'm not like, yeah, it's great. It's all going to be amazing. No, but
do you think optimism and the culture of optimism can be an oppressive thing ever?
Well, there's all these, there's these international surveys of how happy people are, and Ireland comes up very high. And, you have to wonder, are Irish people happier, or have they been brought up not to say when they're not happy? Have they been... It's a question.
Yeah.
I think people are happier in Ireland than they are in Wales. Where I live now.
Seriously?
Yeah, I do. I think there's I don't know. I think there's a certain joie de vivre here that maybe Wales and the UK in general has less of, I think.
And would you rather live amongst happy people, or people who convince themselves that are happy and sugarcoat everything, or people who are more honest about their feelings, like in Wales?
That's a good question. And in a way, are you happier if you tell yourself you're happier? Does that contribute to your happiness, to tell yourself that you're happy?
Well, I think it does.
Yeah, you might be right.
Because sometimes I think happiness is like a switch, and if you convince yourself you can flick it, but then you're just a happy fool.
As long as you're not repressing a whole load of negative, emotions like sadness and anger, and as long as they're not all being repressed so far down that they really are actually messing with your life, I think it's fine. But I think you have got to be honest about things like sadness, and you have to, there's got to be room in your life to be able to get that out.
I've always found you to be somebody not afraid to say what you're thinking.
That would be correct.
But even like in social situations, like sometimes if there's awkward situations, you'll just say the thing out that's on everyone's mind, and other people may not say it. I think that's a skill, because I think one of my greatest faults is that I sugarcoat things. I always want to give people the best possible version of a situation, even if it's not the truth. Now, as I'm saying this out loud, I realise the folly of my ways. I don't know why it is. I like pleasing people. I don't know exactly what it is. Whereas you have a directness that when something is upsetting you, pissing you off, you'll say it out. Do you attribute that to anything in particular? Were you always like that, or did you go at one stage, hang on a minute, I need to be like this?
I'm not. I would hope that I would take account of people's feelings. I'm trying my best not to hurt people's feelings. But I am an opinionated person, and I never felt much of a reason to hold back my opinions. In general, unless it would hurt someone's feeling. I would hope that have some empathy, with how other people are feeling. My mother is very direct. She's a very direct person. And I think as well, and in Brittany, my mother's not Breton, she's Welsh, but in Brittany, people do kind of speak their minds. You know what I mean? Like, if it goes along with thinking everything's shit. You've got to say why it's shit.
Well, at least that's constructive. Saying it's shit isn't enough.
No, it's not enough. That's right, yeah. I don't like people who are sort of constantly... I would hope I'm not Mrs. Angry, No,
I wouldn't consider you angry necessarily, just forthright. There is a difference. There's a big difference.
Yeah. Also, I just think I have a bit of a problem with chitty chat. I do like to get to the meat of a conversation. I don't really want to talk about the weather for very long. Well,
then Ireland and Wales are both pretty bad locations to live in.
Yeah, I don't know. I have very good chats with people here. I gotta say, I'm just back for a few days now. We've had some very, very good chats.
Well, you're doing the rounds.
I am, yeah.
I can't believe it's 9 years since you left Ireland. And if I ask you, do you miss Ireland, you're going to have to say you do.
I'm going to have to start crying.
But what does the, in terms of perspective, because I think what's very interesting about you is because you've lived in 4 main places, let's say. So it must give you a great perspective to see when you go away and come back. So after having not lived in Ireland for 9 years and now, I know you've been back since, what do you see that you didn't necessarily notice when you were here all the time?
I think it's a very dynamic city, it's a young city, there's a lot of young people here, and there's a lot of dynamism. It's changed since I left to some extent. You've had the crisis and then you sort of bounce back to some extent.
And it's mad because the streets kind of look vaguely the same.
Yeah.
But there's more people everywhere.
Yeah, it seems like there's a hell of a lot of people on the street. And a lot of new places. As I was walking here, I thought, what's that place? What's this place? What's a lot of places have opened. Is there a sort of slightly techie thing now?
Yeah, there's 100,000 people working in tech living in Dublin.
Right. I do get a bit of the tech vibe here.
What's that mean?
I don't know. It's a sort of the same vibe you feel when you're in San Francisco. That whole the whole slightly Silicon Valley vibe.
How would you? What clues made you go?
I suppose a certain type of person. Maybe that's why I'm spotting people who probably work for Google.
Is it because they have backpacks with the names of tech companies on them? All the companies now when you work for them seem to give you a backpack with the name of the company on them.
Yeah, probably. And a certain way of dressing, I suppose. A certain a level of a look. There's a look. There's a tech look, I think. And it's not the look of, it's not 1980s, 1990. Well, I wasn't really here in the 80s, 89. I moved here right in the end of 89, but it's not 90s hippie Dublin look. not quite.
Well, a lot of people spend a lot of time at the gym now, which they never really did before. I'm sure that's universal the world over. Is that kind of what you mean by the look, or?
No, I wouldn't say it's... Yeah, probably healthier.
Well, people have more to do than drink all the time now. Like in the 80s, early 90s, so many of my contemporaries, they spent a lot of time in the pub. And when I look back at it now, I think it's because literally there was no other outlets.
Yeah, and of course a massive thing is, being connected all the time. Nobody had a phone, nobody had email, nobody had anything. So, you were actually in a pub talking to the people you were with, and that's what you did all day, and we didn't have jobs because we were on the dole. So, and also we didn't have any money. So, and I don't know how we even paid for the pints, really.
And you don't have a smartphone.
I don't.
Is this a policy decision?
Yes, I'm a refusenick, the last of the Luddites. I'm holding out as long as I can. Apparently, Nokia has brought out a new Nokia, which is sold out because I've been trying to buy one. So, and apparently, the cool kids of Peckham and Berlin love the Nokia, which is great for me because I still have mine, and
So could you define why you were refusing? And what are you refusing to nick?
I don't want to be connected at every moment of my life. I don't want to be. I mean, I'm on. I have a laptop. I'm on email. When I'm home, I check my emails. I don't want to be constantly plugged into the internet when I'm walking around. It's my last stand.
And did you have a smartphone before and abandon it, or just never go for it?
Never got one. Just thought I'm not going to do that. I probably will have to eventually, because it's getting harder and harder not to have one. But
What things are hard in terms of people like saying, "Oh, I'll message you," or what are the things that when you go, "Oh, I have to think about this"?
Yeah, people send me messages I can't open. And it comes up on my Nokia as message can't be displayed. And then the emojis come up as squares. I don't worry about that. I don't need the emojis in my life. But yeah, it's tricky. Sometimes something's going on and everyone's emailing each other that's my Nokia beeping the message. People are communicating more and more with email on a sort of, urgent basis, and if you're working with people or in a group of people, which I am at the moment, everyone's communicating via email. I mean, they sort of know I'm not going to get back to them straight away, but, it gets trickier. Also, I would like, sometimes when you're trying to find your way around, it would be good.
To have the maps.
Yeah.
There is a certain tyranny there, though, now when people send you a message, the expectation of an instant response.
Yeah, and the fact that you have to constantly check in. And I'm a songwriter, and a lot of what I need to do, how I've lived my life for a very long time, and what you need is to have nothing going on, you need to be spending a lot of time staring out the window daydreaming to write songs, and the constant flow of information into your life really is really detrimental to that in a big way. Even a mobile phone, even just text messages and calls, which is all I have at the moment, that takes away from sitting in pubs, staring out the window.
And is that how and when songs come to you?
So yeah, in general, songs come to me when I'm not doing anything else. When my mind isn't doing anything else. You need that emptiness, and it's hard to get the emptiness now.
And at what stage did the whole notion of being a songwriter even enter your mind as a possibility? I mean, your dad is a writer.
My dad's a poet, mainly, writes for the theatre as well, but he's mainly a poet. I started writing songs when I was about 11. I got a guitar when I was 10, and then I got a few lessons, chords, and I got sort of fixated on the Beatles, especially Eleanor Rigby, that song. I got a bit obsessed with it. I had a 45, my stepfather's 45, and I just played it over and over and over, and my first song was called All the Lonely People. It was a little bit of a rip-off. But I was about 11 and I started writing songs then. I wrote quite a lot of songs when I was 11 and 12, and I still have them. They're quite funny, quite sweet. Yeah. There's one about Elvis Presley's death. Well, not so sweet, but yeah, and I was a cheerful child, clearly.
Well, I remember hearing about Elvis's death. I think it was actually the first time I was aware of him, was being told he died.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, and I remember it being a really big deal. So,
did you feel like you were following in your dad's footsteps? Was it like the family business, or I mean, that notion of deciding, oh, this is what I want to be, or this is what I want to do, or did it just kind of evolve over time?
Well, I think, when I started writing songs as a child, I didn't have any notion of what I was going to be. I don't think I ever thought I'm going to be a singer when I grow up. In fact, I know I didn't. I wanted to be a vet and a private detective or a ballet dancer. There's a lot of things I wanted to be, but I didn't have any. I think it's a bit different now, because I think if you'd be 12 now writing songs, you'd be on YouTube, playing them and hoping to be discovered by a label, so you get signed by the time you're 14, because that's kind of what you need to do now. But then, I had no notion, I mean, I definitely, because my dad's a poet, and, there's, I think language, is important to him, and my dad lived a long way away, so, I think there was a level of emulating him as a way of, I mean, he used to send me music tapes as well, cassettes and I think there's a bit of communication through music that went on there, because I didn't see my father much. But I didn't think about becoming a singer for a living until, I don't know, I mean, I started singing in bands and busking when I was about 16, but even then, I went to university later, and it wasn't until I left university until I was about 23 that I decided to give it a go.
What was it that prompted you to give it a go?
Well, I did a law degree, and I thought, I don't want to do that.
Law? Oh my God, if you had asked me to guess the degree you had done, I don't think I would have picked that in a million years. How did that come about?
I didn't go straight from school to university. I left school, I didn't want to go to university, but I had good enough results to go, but I didn't want to go. So I did some acting, actually. I did some acting on Welsh telly, and I played the singer in a band, and it was like a 6-part series, and we did an album and toured a bit. And I carried on singing and did a bunch of acting, and then travelled a bit, and then I just thought, and I had a few adventures, and then thought, maybe university wouldn't be so bad, And
how did you settle on law?
I wanted something you could fall back on if you were something that you could, something that would keep my parents happy, and something that I thought would be a solid thing to fall back on. Although now, of course, lawyers are dime a dozen, and everyone's got a bloody law degree, and it would be no use of me whatsoever now, that degree. But at the time, I thought it would be maybe. I didn't want to do music, but I thought it might be good to have something solid behind me. So I did that for 3 years.
And could it be like the childhood ambition to be a private detective mutated into wanting to be a lawyer, or?
Well, don't know. In this therapy session.
Well, because I was going to ask you earlier, when you wanted to be a private detective, what type of crimes did you dream about yourself solving?
I don't think I can't really remember. I don't know that I was that specific about. I think I've always liked a mystery, and I think in a way, songwriting is a bit like. I also want to be an archaeologist, and I think there is a bit of like digging, looking for the crux, digging down and finding the kernel of things.
Yeah, you're mining.
Yes, mining. Yeah. I never made a link between private detective and lawyer, but yeah, and I really like crime thrillers, like on telly, and reading crime thrillers. I don't read them that much anymore, but I love a good detective series.
So which do you prefer, a TV show where the crime is solved within the hour, or one that goes over like a series?
Oh, the series. Where's the fun in the hour? Yeah, a series, definitely.
So this is a golden age for like long evolving crime series.
Yeah, it's brilliant, especially if they're Scandinavian. Yeah.
I just discovered Ditse the other day.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
It's a Danish one, and it's got loads of the same people as are in Borgen. but it's this woman who's a crime reporter in Copenhagen who moves to our house. I've only watched the first episode and it's really good. But you could put anything in Danish that I would think was rubbish in English, and it's in Danish all of a sudden. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant.
I loved Borgen. I loved it, you know, and also I really loved the way they represent women, you know, because they, you know, it's quite different to the way women are represented on telly through the English language often. Although actually there's quite a lot of good series on Netflix now with really good female characters in them, strong and interesting and fully formed.
Yeah, the women in the Danish shows in particular, they're strong.
Yeah.
They are strong.
No, they're just, you know, real characters, you know, not sort of just sketched out on the side. Yeah.
And you're writing a play at the moment.
It's not a play, it's a show.
Excuse me, a show?
Yeah, sort of a show, not a musical, but a show with music in it, songs in it. And when is this going out?
Monday.
Oh, I'm not sure if it's happening yet.
So, when you were a kid, you wanted to be a private detective, you studied law, you love Scandinavian drama, and you're working on a show. Would you ever consider like writing a crime series or?
I'm new to prose. You know, it's I wrote an essay about Nina Simone that was in a book, and that was my first thing other than songs I'd ever written. And this will be the thing I'm working on now. So it takes a lot to write prose. I mean, I don't know. Maybe as you get better, at it and more experienced, it goes quicker. But thoughts of writing a whole book, or I don't know, maybe or a TV series. I don't know. I'm first and foremost sticking to the songs, really.
When you write songs, do they just come out stream of consciousness, or do you craft and craft and craft? What's the process like for you?
There's no pattern. I mean, I'm slightly superstitious about thinking about it and talking about it too much. It definitely comes out of a phrase, you know. Most of them have been a phrase with a tune attached.
Like, there you go now.
Yeah, and then everything comes out of that, really. I don't really I've never started with an idea. I haven't really got ideas, you know, in general. I mean, you know, I've got opinions. I haven't got ideas. But yeah, it would be more, but lately I kind of thought that maybe was limited melodically, because I'm kind of getting my melodies out of natural speech, you know. So I've been concentrating more on melody and trying to, you know, emulate the people whose melodies I really admire, like the Beatles, Brian Wilson, Ray Davis, Big Star, you know, those people who just write those killer melodies. And I've been trying to think of melodies beyond words, you know, and not stick to the tune that comes out of the words. So I don't know if I'm succeeding or not. I'm trying.
Well, no, but just when you said that about coming from phrases, just a whole flood of your songs came into my head, and it's almost like so it's like concepts almost, and you build a song around. But you've had so many amazing tunes. You've written so many amazing tunes, and some of them are gentle and meandering, and some of them are these driving tunes of these people you like. I don't mean driving as in you listen when you're driving, but, you know, Shaking the Disease from to mind, or, you know, there's so many amazing
thanks.
songs.
I think my ambitions, I haven't fulfilled my ambitions yet, not on the melody side. I think I'm a good lyricist, but it's like those golden melodies, you know, the ones where it just takes a turn, like I don't know, like what, like God Only Knows, you know, or anything Ray Davis has ever written, really. You know, it's just like those supremely beautiful melodies. That's it's good to have something up there that you're aiming for that you probably will never get to, but at least you know.
Well, when you get there, you're done. So what's the point then?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So what is it, or why is it you do what you do? Is it that attainment for these beautiful melodies, or are you trying to transmit things to people, or are you trying to scratch your own itch? I mean, why do you think you do it?
I don't know. I mean, it's I've been doing it since I was 10, 11, so it is to some extent second nature. And ironically, I really don't do that much of it, It's like not a big part of my week, because actually sitting down playing the guitar and singing, because there's so many other things to do. And that's the sort of thing with trying to make a living as a musician, when you don't have a structure around you, I mean, there was a time when I did have a structure around me. I had people to do all the other stuff that I now have to do, the management, the publishing, and this idea that it's great to be, everyone's self-sufficient and, everyone's doing it for themselves. Yeah, but that all takes an awful lot of time. And also it requires a bit of your brain that's really not the bit of your brain you need to write songs. It's a very different mindset. But anyway, I am still doing it. And it's not I definitely never think about communicating with an audience as such. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing it for others. I'm doing it for me. There's probably a certain amount of communication, private communication, but it's not, I'm not writing songs for other people, I don't, but I do like performing them, and when I'm singing it, singing those songs in a gig, I am singing for others. Obviously I'm there, there's an audience, and I'm not there just for me, and I am there for me, but I do want to, I want something to be going on in the room, and otherwise I may as well just stay in my bedroom and sing.
And what brought you to Dublin in the first place? Like why here at all? Like, did you have any previous connection when you landed here? Like, what was the...
No, I didn't have any connection other than my parents had come to Ireland when I was maybe about 6. They were involved in... my dad was a founding member of a sort of independentist party. Actually, it wasn't independentist. They wanted autonomy for Brittany, called the UDB. And my mum was still is very involved with Plaid Cymru. But they were in Brittany at the time, and they came over to meet the civil rights movement here in Belfast, and they were in Dublin as well. And they bought me 2 singles from Dublin. So my first records came from Dublin, and it was Pinky and Perky, the Grand Old Duke of York, and Oh Happy Day, the new Something Singers. I can't remember the name of them. Oh Happy Day, which is a great song. And so my first 2 records came from Dublin. I don't think that was necessarily connected, but you never know. And my parents were big fans of Irish music, and we listened to a lot of... They put on a gig with the Dubliners once in Brittany, and they played a lot of Irish music, things like Oria de Sagaiti, Shonaria, which is an amazing record. The Dubliners, there would have been quite a bit of Irish music in the house. So there was a connection there.
Was Ireland like this mythical land of independence?
Yes, it was, because it's the only independent Celtic country. And I think, there was definitely a bit of political hero worship going on in our household. Yeah.
Pictures of Gerry Adams in the kitchen.
Well, I don't know how they felt it. No, I don't think they would have been fans of that IRA. There was another IRA, wasn't there?
There was the old.
Old, yeah, which they would have had maybe some contact with. I can't remember what that's called. Is it
there's so many different splits and schisms and rebrandings, and it depends what era of time you're talking about, really,
Well, this would have been, wait a minute, this is 71, so they still existed at that point, they were the Marxist IRA, the sort of civil rights Marxist IRA, and they had a name, I can't remember Was it the official or the...
There was the provisional, there was the
Yeah.
ugly, there was so many
Yeah.
different versions. So Ireland, you were already kind of, as a child, predisposed towards the notion of Ireland.
Yeah.
But that doesn't explain why you came here.
No, I was living in... I left university. I was living in London. I was living in Cardiff again and going back and forth to London. I played a gig. I met up in London, Donald Lunny and Alan Stivell were playing a gig, and Alan Stivell was an old friend of my dad's, so I went along. Well, they knew each other anyway from the past. They would have been, in a way, Alan Stivell was to music what my dad was to poetry in Brittany, so I went along to say hello to Alan, and I met Donald Lunny there, and got chatting, and then I got chatting to Des McCullough afterwards. And he said, took an interest in what I was doing and said, would I be interested in coming over to Dublin to play some gigs? And we kept in touch, and he organised quite a few gigs, about a month's worth of gigs. At which point I just thought, oh no, I'd been over once since before that. I'm skipping a stage. I'd applied after university, I went on something called the Graduate Enterprise Programme, which was Maggie Thatcher's way of stopping graduates from signing on, They'd send you off on a course rather than sign on. And it was really good. We went somewhere for a week. It was in London, in central London. And they took, and it was all, it was to make entrepreneurs of us, So, and you had to do a plan at the end of it of what you were going to do, compete for this market research grant of £500. And mine was setting up a record label and going to Dublin to research it. And I won. So I got 500 quid to come over to Dublin and do this thing, and I met a few people when I was here. So I think that was before then. So I'd already come over and...
So Maggie Thatcher's £500. What did you learn from your trip to Dublin on your feasibility trip?
I thought it was a really great place and I loved it. And I think I may have, at that point, seen the hothouse flowers on top of the pops and thought, they look interesting. And, there might have been a certain amount of fancying going on. And
any specific flower or just in general?
In general. They just looked like men I'd like to meet,
Windswept and interesting and free and poetic and musical.
And long-haired hippies, which there weren't that many of in my general environment in the late 80s,
So you followed the hothouse flowers to Dublin?
Well, I didn't follow them, but I think that having seen them on top of the pops, and then I got this grant, and then I ended up meeting them somehow. I can't really remember how, but all in all, Des organised these gigs, and then I ended up I came over. I just thought I didn't have much going on at the time. I just had a car. I put everything in the car. Came over with a friend with all my stuff, and then I ended up doing a mini tour around the Gaeltacht with the hothouse flowers, opening up for them, which was great. And I just had so much fun. And I thought, I'm staying, And
brilliant. Isn't it amazing how a band can really represent a country like that? Like, I still think of, all of the people that come to Ireland because of our music. And I think the official Ireland and musical Ireland should be kind of kept pretty separate anyway. But at the same time, I don't think the musical community gets the credit it deserves for what it does for the country.
I think the musical community had a massive part in the big changes that came in Ireland later. I think so, because it did become became the place to be. And it was because of the musicians that it became the place to be. Definitely, it drew me here. And I know, and it drew a lot of people here. And I think that was, because I suppose before that, a lot of the people left, and even at that time, a lot of people were leaving in the late 80s, weren't they? They were going, and even in the early 90s, and I ended up going to the States then, but still then a lot of people were going to New York, and they were, but yeah, it became a really great place to move to, and in a way, that started a ball rolling, didn't it?
Did it start a ball rolling for you, moving to Ireland?
Yeah, I think it did. I quite quickly found a really great audience, like a really great live audience. I did these gigs in the Bale Bot, which I think you remember. I did like a residency there. I think I did them over a month every week. I'd play there. And they were brilliant. And then I had another residency in the Andrews Lane Theatre. I did about a month of Sundays there. And I just quite quickly developed a really fantastic audience. And people liked what I did, you know. And
I remember you playing with all different types of musicians. I remember you doing some gigs with Vinnie Kilduff at one stage, kind of almost a trad folk thing.
Yeah, we were doing my songs, I think, mainly, and Vinnie, we did some other songs as well, some covers, maybe some folk songs, possibly, yeah. And with him and Brendan, bouzouki player, amazing guy. I can't remember his second name, I'm really sorry. The three of us played around the place. That was really good.
Oh, was there a lot of trad around in Wales? Like, would you have been familiar with trad as a concept, the trad we had here, or...?
I heard it because I heard it growing up from records.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the Chieftains, and I would have heard it growing up. So, and I was really interested in that, you know, and I remember like playing in Dingle and went back to... like Steve Cooney was there, and I went to a lot of sessions. I went to a lot of sitting in with people and singing late night sessions. And I mean, they were kind of wild times, especially in the trad world. You know, I mean, people would stay up till 5 every morning drinking every night. You know, it's mind-boggling, really. The trad world was, you know, quite a wild place.
And how was Ireland like for women then?
Good question. I was just talking about it with some women friends of mine last night. In a way, I actually liked it here. I later got a little bit frustrated with feeling like, actually, as a woman, you could only really go so far here, you know. And I went to the States, really, and I sort of went further, I think, in terms of making records and being signed to a label and all that in the States. I'm not sure that it would have happened here or in the UK, because I think that you could because the industry was so male, you know, and the sort of like the gatekeepers of the industry and still is, actually.
And how subtle, or the opposite of subtle, was that? Was it a matter of, here's your box, you stay in it? I mean, how overt was that feeling?
I just think you didn't get the opportunities, you know, that you would get as a man, you know. And I don't think it was ever spoken. It's not overt. Nobody wants to talk about it, you know. But it's just you can see that, you know, you have to be 10 times as good, you know, and still you're still beating your head against a brick wall, you know. And so I just think the sort of your voice in a wider sense, you know, not your voice as in your singing voice, but what you have to say isn't valued in the same way. But on a personal side, when I moved here, what I found hugely liberating was that there was so much less harassment here than there was in the UK, you know, as a young woman, you know. And that was so liberating, you know, that you could go into a pub, and you could even go into a pub and have a drink on your own, or you could walk home at 3 o'clock in the morning. You weren't objectified in the same way. And people, I felt like people would talk to you as a human being here, much more. And I don't know, that was, and I was talking to 2 friends of mine last night about it, Irish friends, you know, and that's probably changed for the worse here, I imagine. I don't know. I'm not young anymore, you know, and you don't get, you still get a little bit of that, but you don't get as much of it. But that was really wonderful to be able to feel like, free to sort of, you know, go out at night, you know, do your own thing and not be constantly feeling somewhat in danger, you know.
And then you got to a point where you felt you'd gone, as you say, as far as you could in Ireland, or?
Yeah, I did. I had a really fantastic audience, live audience. I'd actually had signed a deal briefly to London Records through the Hothouse Flowers, because London were their label, and I had a sort of singles deal with them. But I started working with Kieran Owens, who became my manager, and nothing was really going on with London. I had recorded a single with them, but they weren't releasing it, and so he was sort of saying, why don't you look to the States, you know, because I think the industry there would be much more open to you than the UK industry, music industry. And he got me out of my deal with London, and they were happy to see me go because they weren't really doing anything with it. And then I went to the States then, and then after a while, you know, that was after a bit of time, I ended up signing to Elektra, with Kieran's help, you know, Kieran. I mean, I had some other offer, you know, I had a bunch of offers from the States, you know, but that was, yeah. So as far as recording and the industry and all that, New York was much more open. Ireland didn't really have its own music industry at the time. No. You know, it was London. You know, it was dependent on London, and I wasn't the next U2. You know.
And did you know it was New York you wanted to go to, or did that just come about? Because you spent a lot of time in New York then, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was there, you know, on and off for a long time. You know, I started then going back and forth a lot between Dublin and New York, as a lot of people did, you know, because a lot of people had those Morrison visas, and a lot of my friends would go over for a bit, come back for a bit. You know, there was a lot of back and forth. And I got great help from the Irish people in New York. You know, I played in Sinead a lot, which was an Irish guy, well, two Irish guys, Shane and Carl. And
you know, Carl's published a book. He's written a novel.
I know, yeah.
Carl Geary.
Yeah, I know. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to. Yeah, I heard it's very good.
I have not read it, but his brother Mark assures me it's very good, and I do intend to read it at some point.
Yeah, I've heard several people say it's very good. Yeah, so New York was then...
And you landed. And going back to Maggie Thatcher and this entrepreneurial course, and now you were saying earlier about the fact of all these things you have to do that you didn't have to do. Do you feel that you are an entrepreneur?
I am an entrepreneur. I really, really don't want to be. I have no interest in being one, but I have to. If I want to make a living singing. And I mean, I consider myself an artist, and I'm not, you know, it might sound a bit arsey to say that, but, you know, I want to be an artist. I don't want to be an entrepreneur, but it's hard to. I also don't want to have to get a job, so I have to do the entrepreneur side of things.
Well, where's the line? So if you're to have artist on one side and entrepreneur on the other, like, what's the line you have to cross and you don't like to? Like, what bits would you get rid of the first chance you can? Just lots of really. Because what I'm getting at is that, you know, the thing that for me entrepreneurs and artists have in common is they're putting things out there into the world. They're not just sitting there waiting for things to be served to them. They're actually going, okay, well, I'm going to put something out there. I'm going to make something. I'm going to do something. And I was wondering, from your perspective as someone who's kind of been forced into entrepreneurship, what kind of similar muscles you find overlapping, and then what bits don't overlap at all?
I suppose the similar things is that you get up every morning and you sort of have to reinvent the wheel. You know, there's no pattern. You're not following anything. You're having to think, you know, how am I going to do this today? And, you know, and sort of trying to make it up on the spot. That's the similarity. But I think you're sort of flexing a very different side of your brain. You know, one is, you know, it's very organizational. You have to. It's other orientated. You're constantly reaching out to others. It's about developing relationships and following up on things. You know, and being an artist is largely internal. You know, it's sort of it's going inward, and the whole thing happens really inside your mind, and it's not. I mean, of course, unless you're doing something collaborative, you know, which I am at the moment, because the theatre thing is collaborative, so that's completely different again. But certainly with the music, you know, and obviously I would play with musicians, and if I'm making an album, we'd be getting the arrangements together or that. But I think it is very different. It requires different strengths, you know. And I know I hope I'm good at music. I'm not a good entrepreneur. really. I'm, you know, I just like, it's just, I try, but you know, you're a business person, you know, and self-promotion, you know. It's just like, I much rather go to the dentist than promote myself. You know, I just, it's my idea of hell. Telling people how great I am on a daily basis.
Do you have a detoxification process, like a cleansing process, to kind of wipe the entrepreneurial bits away, scrape them off the inside of your brain when you want to try and write a song? Or
no, I don't, and I think that's a problem, because it does. I think it's got to be something inside your brain, hasn't it? It's sort of right brain active and left brain active, or I don't even know which side is which and what they do. But I think it really is. I think business and art are fundamentally different things, and really it's very, very hard for the same person to do both. I think I don't have an efficient way of switching from one to the other, and I think in a way that both sides suffer because of it. You know, I mean, I would never choose to be a businesswoman. If I wasn't going to be being an artist, I would be something completely different. I wouldn't be choosing to go into business. I would be going into, I don't know what I would do.
Do you think it's part of the nature of creating art that artists are undervalued and in some respects taken advantage of? I mean, for me, there seems to be a great imbalance between how artists are rewarded and how, let's say, business consultants are rewarded. And if you look at roles in society and the different bits that we all need as a community to survive and how they're valued, you're nodding. I'm
nodding. Yeah, I am a believer in the role of the artist in society. You know, I mean, I would be, wouldn't I? But, you know, I think it's, you know, I think a society without artists is going to be pretty fucking dull and poor, you know, poor not in a financial sense. And yeah, the more society becomes, you know, globalized, and you know, this not just capitalism, but this sort of form of extreme capitalism, which it kind of is. The more that grows and flourishes, the less art in a real sense. Because I think there's art and there's, if you like, fake art. Like there's news and fake news. You know, there's a facsimile of art, you know, ersatz art, that doesn't actually do what art does. It just gives the appearance of doing it.
Like, there's a whole slew of singers at the moment, and there's just this fake emotion in their voices. And for me, it's kind of funny, because when I was a kid, you know, the first music I got into was pop music, and you know, pop music for me was a gateway into other sorts of music. And now my 8-year-old getting into pop music, and I don't want to say to him, look, you know, when you're 16, you're going to think, oh, this is absolute rubbish, because I went through the exact same process as he went through. But some of it feels like exploitation of children, when all these emotions are just laid on thick and heavy, and all these strings are pulled, and you're listening to it as an adult going, this is rubbish. This is absolute rubbish. These people have just sat down there and gone, okay, well, if someone's at this stage of emotional development, what button do we need to push to get them to relate to this? That's kind of what it feels like to me, anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure a whole lot of money goes into the development of those. It's marketing music, you know. It's like it's music made to be marketed and to make a lot of money, and it does. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But I don't know whether I should burst my kid's bubble or not.
No, you can't do that. No. And I remember my friend's daughter who was really into the Spice Girls, way back then. She's grown up now. I mean, she's 25 now, and she's a great singer. She loved the Spice Girls, and I was kind of slagging them off. And her mother said, "Don't do that. You're like, that's what she likes. You're kind of humiliating her by denigrating the music she likes." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sorry." And anyway, now she's an amazing singer, and an amazing songwriter, and with great taste. So, people find their own way.
Yeah, I mean, the first cassette I bought was Nick Kershaw.
Yeah, there we are.
And he's not the worst. I mean,
No,
Nick Kershaw, he would actually stack up pretty well.
He would, yeah, he would. I like pop music. I really like Beyonce. I love Lorde. My God, she's amazing. I love her new single.
The Green Light one.
Yeah. So great. It's such a great song. Really good song. And I love, there's a lot of stuff in, how would you call that? It's not really commercial music, but it's music that sells a lot of, shifts a lot of units. That's a bit different from something that's cynically manufactured in order to, I cannot stand Ed Sheeran. I absolutely can't stand it. And I don't mind saying that into a microphone.
And what is it about Ed you dislike and Lord you do like? I mean, because on paper they're broadly similar.
Well, not to the ear.
That's true.
Because, there's like good music and bad music. I mean, basically, Ed Sheeran, I just don't get it. It's just like the worst fucking lyrics you can possibly imagine. I'm not someone who slags other people in interviews, and, maybe this is going to...
But what's really interesting about Ed Sheeran is David Gray is one of his biggest influences.
Really?
Yeah, so he's a massive David Gray fan, and you could actually say that without David Gray, Ed Sheeran may not have happened.
Well, I don't know what to say to that.
Damn you, David Gray.
No, I'm gobsmacked, No, he's probably a lovely bloke, who's done very well out of making...
So I watched his Glastonbury gig there the other day on the telly, and what really struck me about it was that he has all of the singer-songwriters that I went to in Whelan's, and Ed Sheeran is in tribute to them. Like they're the moves he aspires to. They're the things. That's how it's very obvious that's who he wants to be ranked beside. He doesn't want to be filed beside the Spice Girls in a record collection.
Well, in a way, and that's how he's been marketed. He's been marketed as a singer-songwriter. You have Leonard Cohen, you have Bob Dylan, and you have Ed Sheeran. And it's just, but I suppose it's selling albums to people who probably have never, I don't know, I'm assuming have never heard Leonard Cohen, because if you had, why would you listen to Ed Sheeran? I mean, it's for people, I'm guessing the people who buy the Ed Sheeran records are super young, are they?
One assumes, yeah.
So it's aimed to them, he's got a look, he's very appealing, it's put together like the Spice Girls were put together, very, skillfully. I'm sure he doesn't think that he's like a cog in the wheel, but I have no idea what he thinks about what he's doing, but...
Yeah, and I said I've never been to one of his gigs, but I was really, really intrigued by the Glastonbury thing, and I watched a few songs and kind of moved along. But I do love that Lord Green Light. But the thing for me that's common with both of them is they both have co-writers, like I can't remember the name of the Lord's guy, but he's the guy on the piano in the video. I don't know if you've seen the video.
Yeah.
And Ed Sheeran writes with one of Snow Patrol.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, well, that's two people I've alienated then. Sorry, guys.
So there's like complete, and this idea of the co-write now and kind of making things better, and if you're not sure how to write a song, you collaborate with people, which I assume is kind of anthem to you, the idea of, or would you, if you're stuck with a bit of a song, would you sit down with a co-writer to make it zingier?
No, I have co-written a little bit. I co-wrote a song in French with Anne Scott, and actually we haven't recorded it, but it's not a bad song. I've done the odd bits of co-writing in the past, and I would co-write a song with someone whose songwriting I liked. I wouldn't do it because we were finessing a product for mass consumption.
But it's interesting you were talking earlier about, trying to separate how your songs right now is in being driven by an idea or a song and the melody that went with those words, and then trying to find the melody separately from it. Like, could you picture yourself going, I'm going to write a hit record?
No, I did toy with the idea of having to go commercial songwriting 2 or 3 years ago. I think I've just blown in now, haven't I? I know Ed Sheeran's not going to hire me. But I thought about it. I thought, because there's a lot of money to be made, and I thought, well, I could do that in my sleep. I think, write the top line, because they're teams. You've got teams who do different parts, and they need someone to write the top line, which is the vocal melody, and and it has to be a certain way and all that. And I thought, well, could I do that? Probably, And then I thought about it, and I thought, I can't risk it. I mean, not only would it take a lot of dedication to break into that world, because it's a lot of people want to do it because there's a lot of money to be made. But also I just thought, what if it killed my joy in songs? What if it destroyed what I have? Why would I do that really? Other than for the cash. So I kind of decided I wouldn't try and do that. But you never know.
But it's interesting. How long was that process? Like, how long was it from you started to think about going, nah, like I might mess with the magic?
I don't know if I seriously thought about it. I mean, if it was something like, I think you can do that very well, like Lorde. Whoever's writing songs with or for Lorde is doing a really good job. Same with Beyonce. I really like those songs. They're a different kind of song from the songs I write, but I really love them. I could see myself doing something like that if it was good, But it's not something you just do. It's something you have to really dedicate a lot of time to breaking into, And I just haven't got the energy.
This whole collaboration you do now in Holland, you were telling me about it yesterday. If you can explain that again, that sounds really, really interesting. I know it's not trying to make big, massive chart hits, but it sounds like a deep and involved and exciting thing.
That's something in the jazz world, so no. Not a whole lot of muller there, but I've been doing half a record with a jazz composer and saxophonist called Marika van Dijk, she's kind of based in Amsterdam, but she spends a lot of time in New York. And it's her album, so she's recorded 5 songs with me and 5 songs with a New York-based singer-songwriter called Jeff Taylor. And we're doing our own songs, but that we've already recorded, and she's rearranged them with orchestration. So for her band, it's called the Stereography Project. So it's sort of strings, brass, and she's written arrangements, and then I've resung them in the studio. And so that's going to come out, I think, in the autumn. And also we're going to do some concerts. We've done some already, and we're going to do more concerts together, jazz festivals, things like that.
And how different are her arrangements, and what was that like, letting somebody else loose on your songs?
I'd heard some of what she's done in the past, so I knew she was good, and she did do a really good job. It's quite strange to re-record a song. In one case, I did the song called There You Go, which I last recorded 20 years ago, so it was quite strange to sing that again. I play it live, but to record it again was a bit strange. It was very, very interesting, and it kind of really opened my eyes working with musicians who read and write music and who come from a whole different side of music. They're educated. They come through the conservatoires and the classical world, and they see music differently, and that's been really interesting. And I've learned a lot. Definitely have learned a lot.
And you kind of, sort of, are perhaps potentially halfway through an album of your own as well, or?
Wish I was halfway through. No, I haven't started.
There's me sugarcoating again.
I haven't started yet, but it's coming. Yeah, I'm gonna make an album. Hopefully, it'll come out. I would like it to come out next spring, or around the time of the show, which will be around that time. But I can't say more about it because they haven't announced it officially.
Because you know, and this is me sugarcoating again, but you know, when there's such gaps between your albums, it makes them all the more precious.
Oh, thanks very much. No, thank you. Yeah, there are long gaps. I'm not prolific. I wish I was a bit more prolific.
But it does. It makes them more important. It definitely does. You're not just there. There's something to be cherished when you have to wait for them. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's getting a bit long now. But
one of the things I was trying to get at, and I haven't really gotten at it, is I think you still have the same fire that you've always had. That hasn't diminished. I don't know what to call it. Like your energy is probably the easy way, but you're still firing.
Thanks.
It's attitude.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm stubborn.
That's true.
So
well, stubborn. You could say focused on the prize.
I do genuinely like what I do. I do, and I have thought about giving up many times. You know, I've thought about doing other things. I even thought about going back to law at one point, and I thought, oh, maybe I could be a lawyer. And I have thought about what will I do? Like, you know, what will my second chapter do if I give up music? But then I just think, no, no. No, I do kind of, yeah, I kind of I do feel like not something in me that's very stubborn, and because I suppose I really love it. I love music above all other things, and I think I'm good at it. And why should I stop? You know, I mean, why would I stop? But it's not easy to keep going. You know, and also it's a sort of it's a world, particularly I think in the UK industry side of things, which I suppose covers Ireland to a certain extent, doesn't it? You know, but less in the US. But there is an age thing in it, in pop music. I mean, it's always been a little bit about youth and haircuts, and I'm not young, and I still haven't got the haircut.
You've got a far better head of hair than I have, Katell, now, in fairness.
I've got hair, but I don't have a haircut. I don't have an interesting haircut. But, you know.
But I think in general, I think the whole idea of age is evolving. And I think as everyone gets older, they don't want to let go of how they felt when they were younger. I think that's pretty universal. And I think our generation in particular are so much, even we thought our parents were so different from our grandparents, but I don't think our lifestyles are changing as radically as they did with previous generations. And I think one thing that I've learned about getting older is you're the same person inside all the time, and you don't change who you are just because you're older. And I think as a society, there's a growing awareness, acceptance, and celebration of that.
Yeah, I think probably the barriers, there isn't that kind of dramatic change from one generation to another. I mean, I actually don't feel dramatically different from my parents, but I think they were dramatically different from their parents, because I suppose they were sort of 60s people, quite, I mean, I definitely talk to my parents in a way like I would talk to anybody, but I think that the way they related to their parents was probably dramatically different. There was a huge shift in society there. and I don't have children, so I don't know how it is to how it would be, between me and if I did,
I think it's kind of them and us versus us and us, if you know what I mean. I think in many ways with all this 99%, 1% business, I think there's so much of society in it together now, all being fecked over by the same people.
Well, we should find solidarity with each other. We need each other. Yeah. And also, there's a lot of things to solve. First and foremost, the planet. That's I am super worried about it, about climate change, and we have got we need each other, we need to, and I think those divisions. I haven't said that, I do feel a little bit sorry for the youth, the middle-aged people are wearing their clothes. I mean, maybe they'd like us to feck off.
We're still waiting for the previous generation to feck off.
Oh, true. Yeah, we're still waiting for the baby boomers to feck off.
We're all like Prince Charles.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're all waiting for a moment in the sun. Yeah.
Not that I feel sorry for Prince Charles, but it is quite comical.
Yeah, no.
His mum's going to live to well over 100. Well, based on her mum.
Yeah, he's a lovely Prince of Wales. Not.
On that note, I can't believe we ended up talking about Prince Charles of all people. Well, as you say, he is the Prince of Wales. So, Katell, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to getting to see the show if it happens. And I look forward to getting to hear musical output from it happens, and look forward to you coming back to play Ireland at some stage. Hopefully 2018 will be the year that will happen.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on your show, Donal.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Millie. And I suppose until next Monday. Bye.